Hello. Hello. My name is Sydney, and I'm every woman. Testing 1 2 1 2. Is this angle better? Is it better? Because it has some color. It has my brother. It has the flower. It has not that lopsided painting that's been bothering me all day. Check done. In today's video, I'm gonna share how I studied for the MCAT. There isn't one particular way to study, but I hope that this, along with your own research, will set up a great foundation for you during your prep. So this video will detail my timeline, the specific resources that I use, my own personal study schedule, and some bonus tips for you to save money because it gets really expensive starting right now, and I'm so sorry, but it's worth it. Worth it. All right. No, yeah, it's worth it. Why am I being weird? Okay, let's begin. Timeline. I plan to take the MCAT the summer of my junior year to just have one gap year, which means after I would graduate, I would have 1 year before starting medical school. I did not plan to take the MCAT 3 times, but alas, here we are. Strategically, I also chose to take it the summer of my junior year because at that point, I had all the prerequisite courses complete for content. Biochemistry, OChem, Gen Chem, physics, and a smidgen of psych and soc. I mentioned this in a previous video, but I just like to reiterate how important it is for you to be mentally, emotionally, and physically healthy to have the best chance of success. I'm probably gonna overshare. I tend to do that a lot, but I was going through a breakup. Actually, yeah. Across my 3 attempts at taking the exam, just love really wasn't my thing. For my first attempt, I did not study, cried a lot. I ended up taking a prep course, which I really regret since it was very expensive and it didn't really help me. I went into that exam knowing I was going to void. My second attempt, seasons change, but your girl doesn't. I cried a lot in the fall, and honestly, I bit a lot more than I could chew with extracurriculars and coursework. I was just holding on to the idea of, okay, one gap year. So even though I didn't feel ready, I kind of tried to convince myself just to take the exam. I got the same score that I initially started off with, a 510. For my third attempt, I had that visceral gut feeling of, okay, this is it. Let's get this done. And that ended up getting me a 517. So if you were to scan at my plan, you would think that I gave myself 4 dedicated months to study, but honestly, that really wasn't the case. I just wasn't feeling the greatest after graduating. I had really low self-esteem and couldn't really find the motivation to get myself to study each and every day. So if you were to kind of compress all those days of what good work I actually did, I ended up having 2.5 months of effective studying for my last take at the MCAT. Resources. Gold standard would be anything by the AAMC. Since your exam is written by them, using any of their practice material would be the most representative of how you would do on the actual exam. I'm going to look at my computer and either split screen, but definitely include it in the description below, all the resources. For content review, I tried the Berkeley Review MCAT prep course, which consisted of lectures given by a student, usually someone who took the Berkeley Review and did pretty well, and handouts of some tricks or mnemonics. In addition to the course, I was gonna say gifted, but no, that course was expensive. I paid for those Berkeley Review content review books, which in my opinion were a little bit too dense. I don't know, it just didn't get me excited studying for the MCAT, which resulted in me abandoning them pretty quickly. Lastly, I used the Exam Crackers content review books. I personally really enjoyed it. In the beginning of every chapter, their objectives are clearly outlined. Each chapter is about 20 to 30 pages. They have beautiful, helpful figures and diagrams and formulas. They also have things to note along the sides of the chapters of like, oh, this is a really important concept, make sure you know this. They have discrete questions throughout the chapter, and at the end there is a 30-minute quiz for you to really solidify those concepts. For practice passages and discrete problems, I used the Princeton Review workbook, which was an assortment of passages for the different topics. I also used the Princeton Review CARS workbook. I had it in a PDF version, so it was very convenient for me to bring around and always just squeeze in some CARS practice. In terms of Khan Academy, I used that solely for my psych and soc review. I actually didn't touch any content books for psych and soc since I heard that Khan Academy worked very closely with the writers at AAMC for psych and soc. And honestly, I think that it was just fine. Khan Academy consisted of a 300-page document. Some pre-med god out there watched all the Khan Academy videos and took notes of the important things, as well as screenshots of important figures or things that would help us memorize certain concepts, and just compiled it all together. I will also list basically, yeah, everything that I'm saying, I'm gonna list it down below. I also used 101 passages from exam crackers, which were basically extra practice exams corresponding to the chapters of the content books. For every chapter, there were 4 90-minute exams of practice passages, which is really great because when you do take a science section, you're allotted 90 minutes. So great for pacing and great for solidifying concepts since they were a little bit more difficult than the AAMC in my opinion. And speaking of AAMC, I also used the official guide. So I had both the paper copy and the online version. Paper booklet had the breakdown of the exam, what each section and concepts covered, and the online version had a couple passages, I believe it was like 4 from all sections just for you to sample. For full-length exams, I took Next Step Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In my first attempt, since I bought the course and it came with exams, I took the Berkeley Review practice tests 1 through 4. I also took the Princeton Review exam, my second attempt at studying for the MCAT. And in terms of AAMC, I took the Unscored Diagnostic, practice test 1, practice test 2, practice test 3, and practice test 4. Of all the full-length exams I mentioned, I would recommend Next Steps Test 1 through 4, as well as the AAMC Unscored Diagnostic and Practice Test 1 through 4. And some honorable mentions. I did want to talk about how I personally have never used Reddit before studying for the MCAT, but I would just like to say the MCAT community for Reddit is just so good. I mean, that's where the Khan Academy doc came out of, but let's say you're taking all these practice exams from different third-party companies and you're like, you know what, I don't really know what this means in terms of how we would do in the test. There are full-length converters that a lot of people have inputted data into an Excel and what they actually score to kind of get a pretty reliable prediction of what that means if you were to take the AAMC test. I didn't personally use this since the time I was studying for the MCAT. UWorld was just starting to gain traction in the pre-med sphere. I would look into it if you're kind of looking for more practice problems in that online format. Lastly, so I'm just gonna preface that I'm not gonna post this since I don't own the rights to this. There is a Mega Drive or Google folders looming around with old AAMC MCAT exams. And I'm talking old, like back then when there used to be an essay associated with the MCAT. So let's say you're nearing the end of your prep and you just want some more representative practice problems. I noticed that the AAMC actually has repackaged a lot of the old cars to sell as volume packs. Schedule. I'm a very visual person. Included in their schedule, there are trackers, so my monthly schedule, also a Khan Academy document checkpoint that I split by month for me to say like, oh yeah, getting closer to my goal. There's also study phases, just like ideal timelines of when I wanted to move on to the next phase, either content with integrated practice, solely practice, and finally just taking exams. In terms of the colors, light purple indicated what I was doing that study day. Dark purple, most likely because there's nothing written in that box, was a miss. As you can see, in the month of November, it was a hard one. That was when I was going through my breakup. I also lost 12 pounds, so yeah, take that. Just kidding, I gained it all back, but pink indicates a break. Even if it was a break day, I felt guilty a little, doing completely nothing. A lot of those days, I included something passive, such as taking Khan Academy notes. The green indicates a practice test day. Orange indicates 1 week out from my actual test, and yellow is test day, which was January 18th, 2019. To decipher kind of what each bit of text means. Sample day, I could do content chapter, the 30-minute quiz at the end, and the review of the quiz, as well as 10 pages of Khan Academy notes. On other days, I've listed 101 passages, such as taking a 90-minute exam from whatever chapter. In addition to taking the exam, I would include review. Every time I would do blah 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 pages of Khan Academy notes, that would basically be me transcribing that document into my own document. It is kind of passive, but I would say forced me to slow down, so I actually would read it more in depth as opposed to just zipping by and just flying through with my eyes. For me, PARS was one of my biggest weaknesses. I made it a point to take mini practice tests every other day and eventually every day, just so I was comfortable or more used to the timing. How I would take my exams, since they are 8.5 hours long, one day would be dedicated to taking the exam. After, I would review the CARS section. The day after, I would review Chem and Phys, Bio, Biochem, and Psych and Soc. Some scheduling tips tips I would recommend: dedicate one day to planning. What resources do I have? What is my specific timeline? Factoring in holidays, the unexpected. I'd recommend to maximize any opportunities to do practice problems. I focus this time on spacing my practice, chunking large, daunting tasks into manageable chunks, such as dividing that Khan Academy document. I would also recommend to take things out of your routine that do not work. I would have taken Anki out since it was such a time sink making these cards and not even reviewing. In general, how I chose what to do certain days, I would always have heavy content chapters such as physics for me, followed by something easier. I would also factor in catch-up days, breaks, and fill in the knowledge gap days, just revisiting concepts that you struggled with to do additional practice problems. One thing I would also encourage, set days where you are assessing your weaknesses. Sometimes it gets easy just going through content. And when you actually take the exams, you're like,
oh, what the heck? I went over this, but why don't I know it?
Just giving yourself those days to review what you went over would give you that insight to know, okay, I'm struggling with this. For me, I realized halfway in my prep that I could answer questions, but I just couldn't do it with stress, or I kept on running out of time. With that, that's when I really started being more strict about timing. Everything practice. I would also recommend saving AAMC material at least a month and a half to 2 months out until you're comfortable with the amount of content and practice that you've done. Maybe you should take the diagnostic first, just so you have a kind of general sense of what the AAMC tests look like. But definitely when you feel the most prepared is when I would start cracking open those AAMC material. When I started taking full exams, I based my schedule on having it on a weekly basis. When I was a month out from my exam date, I upped my intensity. I think I took it once every 4 days. Once every 4 days towards the last month. I would also recommend at least a week before to establish a night and morning routine, to have your body getting used to waking up and operating at a certain hour, but also subsequently falling asleep at a certain hour just to prep for the next day. And the last practice exam, I would schedule to take it a week before your actual exam. I wouldn't overexert yourself because you want to perform your absolute best on the test day and you've done the preparation leading up to then. Bonus tips on how to save money. Taking the MCAT is a very, very expensive process. My first tip would be to plan to reduce any chances of having to retake or incur any unexpected costs. Sign up for the MCAT as soon as the dates are released. Please, please, please plan sooner rather than later, since spots fill out immediately. I've known at least 3 people who've had to fly out of state since all the test centers where they live on a certain date were all full. After you already signed up for your exam, I would be aware of the zones. Let's say you want to push back your exam or change the location, anything, there are costs associated with these changes. Just being aware of the timeline of, okay, by this date, I'm still in the bronze zone, it won't cost as much, versus the silver date versus the gold date, which is super, super close to exam. In terms of pushing back your test, I would just say, if you are trying to rush, you just get it over with and get it done. I've had that mentality and it's not a great mindset to have, because taking the test at a later date and having a great score looks a lot better than having to take multiple attempts. My second tip would be to invest in materials reasonably. For example, if you are kind of curious about a course, I would definitely ask family, one, if it's within your budget, and friends, two, if people found that it was actually worthwhile and helpful. Conversely, I would say do not be shy in investing in materials that will help you. So like I mentioned earlier, AAMC, their products aren't cheap, but it definitely is worth it. Third tip is to ask your network. If you have older friends who have gone through the process, see if they're willing to share what they use. I gave both sets of my content books away, and I'm more than happy just to compile and help anyone else because I know and understand how big the struggle is. Fourth tip, support is so crucial and key. Most exams come with multiple trials. I would create a close group of friends that you trust to share accounts and split the cost and split the trials. After I was said and done with taking the exam, I sold my account to other people on free and for sale pages, which helped kind of reimburse a little bit of my money. Lastly, my fifth tip would be to look into the fee assistance program offered by the AAMC. This is a game changer. If you qualify for financial aid in school, most likely you will qualify for this fee assistance program. Essentially, it will help subsidize a lot of the costs associated with registering or studying for the MCAT. For example, the registration cost for taking the MCAT, I believe, is $320. But with the fee assistance program, it actually reduced the price to $130. In addition to registration being hacked off, you also get a lot of resources that I mentioned from the AAMC for free. According to their website, you will have access to 12 online products from the MCAT official prep. Altogether, that's a total of $236 worth of products. When I got the benefits, which are only valid for a year, one time, I got the official online guide by the AAMC, CARS question pack, all of the section bank, and practice tests 1 and 2. There might be a couple things that I might have forgotten, but in general, each one of those products can range from $15 to $45. So any way to get it for free, like why not? That concludes all the points I wanted to cover. As a reminder, linked below, I will have my study plan, some helpful websites such as the MCAT Reddit community page, as well as that full-length score converter. I'll also have the Khan Academy 300-page document, as well as the condensed document below. And I'm not going to share this since I don't personally own it, but I would encourage you to try to find the mega drive of past AAMC exams, as well as the Princeton Review CARS workbook. Since I know it exists, I've used it multiple times. And if you didn't want to invest in buying the content books, I know Exam Crackers also has an online PDF looming out there as well. So yes, thank you for listening to me talk forever and mumble and drool because I don't know what's going on in here. But I hope this video was helpful to some extent. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned for more pre-med content. I have been a pre-med for a very, very long time and it's time for me to share what I know with whoever wants to know. All right, bye.